Welcome aboard, everybody. Welcome to All Around Azure. We kick off this new week with a stream on Monday with the first Microsoft MVP for most valuable professional, and I'm speaking about Stephane Lapointe, who's a Microsoft
Hi.
Azure MVP, so specialized in Azure. He's based in Montreal, just like me. Do a bunch of stuff in governance, PowerShell, ARM templates, infrastructure as code, and so much more. Anything that I should add, Steph?
Mm,
What
I
else?
like
What is a
uh,
day in the life of?
of Stefan.
Yes.
That's pretty much what you just told, except maybe at my photography that I like very much. But professionally, it's what you just said.
And how long have you been an MVP?
It's been my sixth year and fifth nomination because there's been a year that people got whatever
Yeah,
technicality,
you
but
kind of
it's 6 years. Yeah.
6 years. That's
Yeah.
cool. Congrats. That's pretty nice. So MVP, if you don't know what an MVP is, it's Microsoft. They look at people very active in the community and they give them an award. And that award is valid. Like it's like an award. It's an award. So you have that nomination for 1 year. It gives you access to the Microsoft resources. You have the tags. You got a nice little trophy and everything. And you need to continue to do your contribution, presenting, collaborating in open source, writing documentation, bunch of different stuff to be renewed or get that award again. So congrats. So 6 years is it's a long time. So good
Yeah,
work.
it's a long time. It's a long time, but yeah, not you get used to it, but you do that for the community first, and then the award and the recognition come after from Microsoft. So from the beginning, you do that for the community because you want to get involved, you want to help other people. So I think of it a little bit like going to the gym. I hate going to the gym, but I like doing the MVP stuff, getting getting involved with the community. But it it needs to be natural, and you need to love that to pursue and to go on the MVP journey if you
Yeah.
want. So
Yeah, you cannot do
you need to
that
be
to
you
get
need to be
the
passionate.
award. You must do it for the good cause, because it's part of you, and then like that
Yeah,
way
because
it's
yeah,
sustainable.
because you want to share, you want to help people, you want to uh, you want to learn from others, but also what you learned during your day. Maybe you did something great during the day, and you want to share that so that it can save time and maybe help other people that are maybe less knowledgeable in that topic, etc. So yeah,
Cool. And today we'll be talking about Azure Resource Graph. I
yeah,
need to read it to make sure I don't, you know, put the word in the wrong order. So I have a I have an idea because I used it a little bit, but I'm not sure everybody is aware of what's Azure Graph. So what do you think if we start about, let's explain what's Azure Graph, why we should care, and then from there we could start using it. I don't want to spoil anything, so build some stuff with it.
yeah. Basically,
Do you have any slides or anything you want to share as you're talking, or
yeah, I can present some slides
just as
to
a
yeah as a support. Yeah,
visual
yeah, sure.
support? Yep.
There you go. Should be able to
Yep.
see what is
Manage
meant at
at scale
scale
in Azure.
in Azure. Yeah. So the idea is that over time, your Azure environment, so maybe you're in a large company or in a small company, but usually over time, things will get cluttered and will get a little bit messy. Maybe not as much as this picture, but I wish for you that it's not the case. But
Was it your living room during your renovation? I know you did some renovation.
yeah, that's the before. No, it's a joke. But the idea is that thing will get messy over time
Copy
because
office. That was Joel
but
saying that.
yeah, but Joel is not wrong because in my office, we mix the office with the playroom for the kids, and sometimes it looks like this for real. So the idea is over time things will get cluttered and a little bit. Sometimes maybe it will feel like you're out of control because depending on how you operate in your organization, you might have a central IT that manages everything, but a more modern approach is to allow people to create their resources, configure them, etc. So this way you get all the agility, all the premises of the cloud, getting fast to the market, fast iteration, and be more agile, etc. I just said that, but the idea is the more you allow people to do their stuff, they might not be expert. People move around in department, things like that. So it's a very alive environment. So things over time, if you don't do your cleaning and you don't go back regularly, things will get messy.
Oh yeah, of course. Like people will be shy, not like thinking like on purpose doing bad things, but they will be worried that I don't want to delete that, maybe someone else is using it, or like I'm not sure exactly what I need, but my neighbor here is using that type of VM or resources, I will just use the same, but like they needed something like half that size or whatever. So just by not laziness, but kind of they didn't know, so they just pick the easy way kind of thing. So yeah, like very easy to become a mess.
Yeah, that's a good example, and it becomes even harder when you share resources between teams. So if you take an example, let's say you have an app service which is for websites in Azure, a PaaS service, a platform as a service. So if you use an app service plan which is shared across several teams, you might at some point get to a higher SKU, so you get more compute power because you have maybe 10 websites running on it. But if someone in a corner decide to remove 2 of them, maybe you would have been able to go down a little bit in power, like you just said. So
and there's tool to help us, guiding us into that in Azure, but that's another topic. That's not a topic.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But the idea is that over time, it's a living environment, so things will get messy. But you need visibility, and this is where Azure Resource Graph. There's a lot in the governance portrait, but today we will talk about the 4th icon that you see on the screen, which is Azure Resource Graph. So what we used to do in the past, if you've been playing with resources in the portal in scripting language, what you usually do is that you go one subscription at a time and you query for the information you're looking for, because it was the only way to get information about resources and resource group. You need to switch to each subscription. So what it might look like for people who are comfortable with scripting, this example is in PowerShell, but basically you retrieve, let's say, all your Azure subscription. You will switch the context to the current subscription. You just iterate through it, and after that you can do whatever you want. You can ask for a resource. You can try to find the let's say you're looking for all the storage account in all your subscription. You could use some code like that.
Yeah, because like right now, maybe a lot of our viewers are having just one subscription. They are a developer, they have maybe an MSDN, maybe a pay-as-you-go, maybe a student, whatever subscription. But when you are in an enterprise, you could have many different ones. Maybe the one that the company let you play with, the one for a specific project, maybe a few ones for different clients. So you could have a bunch of subscriptions. So that loop here is looping through all the subscription to collect information. Okay, now because if you only have one, you say, why should I loop through different subscription?
Yeah,
but it makes sense as an enterprise to have multiple subscription.
Yeah, usually you will split production workload, from the development workload. You have also cost incentive if you go with MSDN test pricing. So for the enterprises out there, there's it's common to have several subscriptions.
Definitely.
So, but anyway, this usually when you wanted to query and get the global portrait of all the resources across all your subscription, that was the way to go. You needed some scripting language. This is a PowerShell example, but you could use Azure CLI, which is the command line that runs everywhere. So, and if just a quick note that Azure Resource Graph was born as a proof of concept, as a hackathon at Microsoft.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's a very small group of people that decided, and I think they were coming with the hackathon to try to improve the platform, and they just came up with that new idea of having a big graph in memory to. So I like to think about Azure Resource Graph as a big
library.
Library. I was trying to get the word. Yeah, so I really like to think about it as a big library where everything about our resources, most of the thing about our resources are contained. So think of it, if you're a developer or a technical person, you can think of Azure Resource Graph as a big graph database, a big database in memory. So, and you have very, very quick access, and all the information from the resources from all the subscription is contained there. So instead of going through each subscription, and what people were doing when they were switching to each subscription, they were talking directly to there's something in Azure which is called resource provider. So if you're dealing with VMs and app service, let's say a web app or SQL Server or Cosmos DB, for example, just to name those, you are talking to the management API of Azure Resource Management. But Azure Resource Management doesn't know how to create a VM, doesn't know how to create Cosmos DB. It's the responsibility of what they call a resource provider. So I like to think about a resource provider like a driver on your machine or on your computer. So your computer doesn't know how to print the sheet from your printer. There's a driver that is the intermediate that does that work for them. But the idea is going through each resource provider to query the resources. Let's say I want all the storage account, I want all this and that. When there are certain criteria, resource provider weren't designed to do that. So the performance wasn't that great. And going through each subscription is a pain if you're in an enterprise environment. So the idea of this, so I was referring that it was during a hackathon that they came with the ideas of doing Azure Resource Graph. It was to bring all that data fast and being queryable at the property level, which was a little bit harder to do because you might ask yourself, why would I want to use that? There's a lot of use cases. Let's say you're in there's a security incident and someone at your company asks you, let's say, I want to know how many VMs are impacted by this vulnerability, let's say in that Linux version or for Windows, for example, etc. So how were you able to get that information quickly? And maybe you keep track of all your resources in an Excel spreadsheet, but this is not very dynamic and live, and usually that dates from 6 months old. So basically, keeping the data fresh and up to date and easy queryable. Can I say that? But easy to query. So that was a challenge, and this is what they answered that with Azure Resource Graph during that hackathon. And the service has been out for a little bit more than 2 years now.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It's 2 years, I think. Well, like probably in preview for a little while, and now it's GA, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is expanding. Today we'll see the query aspect of it, but things got a little bit it growth in capabilities and functionalities. So through Azure Resource Graph, you're also able to get what they call the change tracking. So 14 days, Azure Resource Graph is able to retain and get and will enable you to consult the 14 days of change for your resources in Azure. So change resource history. This is something that is very useful. Also, let's say you want to troubleshoot something in production or in your environment. It doesn't need to be a production, but let's say something happened and you need to just guess what happened and why is it that way. Let's say, but with resource history, you're able to go back and say, oh, okay, let's say Stephane 2 did that in production or in dev environment last night, and he changed that configuration. He switched the encryption off, or the HTTPS to HTTP, that kind of thing. So everything you can change on Azure Resources. Azure Resource Graph will also keep track of that for 14 days.
Oh, that's
14
pretty
days.
Cool. So you could even have some job that run every day or something, or every week, because you said 14 days, right? So it's about 2 weeks. So every week or something like that, have a job that run some query to make sure, like, you're respecting some standard or whatever. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, and it's at a couple of places in the portal where you can consult that history and even do comparison between two changes. And you can, a little bit, if you're coding, you can have a kind of visual compare of what have changed between the property set before and after. So anyway, this is something that we're not going to explore today, but this is other functionality that get added to the Azure Resource Graph.
That's nice. If people in the chat want to know more, let us know and we'll re-invite Stephane. Sorry, I called you by your nickname.
It's okay.
I know Stephane in real life, so you probably guessed because of her accent. Kind of very similar. So yeah, like if you're interested to learn more about that historic query, let us know in the chat, in the comments, whatever you're watching this video, and we'll re-invite him and dig deeper.
Yes, and just in one slide, what you gain through using Azure Resource Graph is it really is blazing fast. I had some comparative of, let's say, at my company, we have around 40 subscriptions that we manage, and going through all of them with a script, getting, let's say I wanted to know all the expiring certificates within the next 90 days, for example. This is a real life scenario, but if I wanted to do that the old way, the script was taking between 3 to 5 minutes to switch to each subscription, gather them, do what they have to do, etc. And the same kind of thing when I switched to Azure Resource Graph, I just tweaked the scripting a little bit to use Azure Resource Graph instead of going everywhere, and the result was under 8 seconds. So it's very, very fast when you're looking for answer, and it gives you a great visibility across all your cloud resources. Powerful query. If you're already using log analytics or application insights, it's the same query language underneath. So if you already people that are familiar with Azure Resource Graph or other technologies. Azure Data Explorer, for example. The code name for the query language was originally Custo. So if you know Custo,
you know what it's called today? Is it M, or did they give it a name, or it's still?
I don't know. No, I think they just. No, I don't know. I don't know
I don't want to put you in the corner.
No, but
because
I don't want to invent a name.
I used to call it Custo, and I think they kind of say no, like don't use that name anymore. But I'm not sure what we should call it.
KQL.
KQL.
Yeah, we'll see that if maybe I can share a page of the documentation, but usually it's a KQL documentation. So
excellent. That makes sense then.
Phew.
And do you know, Stephane, is there any, because there's nothing wrong at still using the script. You will have your resources and all that thing. It's just to gain a swiftness and everything, like Azure Resource Graph is faster. But as far as you know, from the top of your mind, like is there anything that I will see in Azure Graph or I will access that I cannot using the, let's say
if you're doing in script, for example, except the fast aspect of it, one of the things you can do with Azure Resource Graph is if you're doing custom dashboard in the Azure portal, you're able to pin Azure Resource Graph queries. So
that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, and this is and that's a big plus. And you can build custom dashboard using Azure Resource Graph. And I have an example of this that we can see a little bit later.
Excellent.
And this is the kind of thing you cannot do in script because this is client side. When you're scripting, you cannot do that kind of thing. And one of the thing also is this is even for larger enterprises and partners, let's say, that play with Azure. The last dot there is the support for Azure Delegated Resource Management. So if people are using Azure Lighthouse, they will be able to query all the subscription of all their customers using Azure Resource Graph. So as a partner, as a provider of service for my clients in Azure, I'm able to, let's say, detect, again, it could be something for security, a misconfiguration I'm attempting to revert or something like that, and scan all my clients with one query and be able to do that also. So again, there's a lot of feature and advantage for, I wouldn't say enterprise, but as soon as you hit more than one subscription. But even if you're having one subscription, like I said, the dashboard thing, you can use and build custom dashboard and use those cool functionality even if you have one subscription. So that's pretty much it for, I think, this. The rest after that is queries. So, and the thing that you just need to keep in mind is that Azure Resource Graph, it's, for that part at least, it's always read-only. So you cannot affect, you cannot delete, you cannot modify things playing with that. So it's safe-proof to use that. The only thing you might have is just have a bad syntax for the query you're trying to build, but you won't cause any damage using Azure Resource Graph. So.
No damage. Damage control is read-only. Excellent. I like that.
Exactly. Yes. So, I think that's kind of a bit of an introduction about what we can say about Azure Resource Graph. So,
how about
it's a big.
We get started.
Sure.
Let's
so
query. Like, how do we start?
First thing, you open the Azure portal. So portal.azure.com. You should know that it should be in your bookmark already. So there's several ways. You can see that I've used it recently, but otherwise you can tap Graph and you have the Azure Resource Graph Explorer. You could always pin that to your sidebar also. The idea is that you get with that intimidating query interface that you need to, just a second. Okay, well, so you can see there's on the left, there's a bunch of tables. The default one is resources. So this is where all the information about your resources is. But over time, and especially during the last, I'd say, 18 months, they added a lot of tables to Azure Resource Graph. So you now have access to advisors' recommendations. You have access to security events, assessments from Security Center. You have access to the maintenance. If there's planned maintenance in Azure that are coming your way, you're able to query all those kind of things with, same thing with alert management. So if there's alerts that you created, you could query those kind of information in there. So, but the main one, and the one we'll focus on today, is resources. So at the very base, if you don't specify any table, the default one that will get selected is resources. So if I click on resources, am I on the good one? Yeah. So if I click run query on this, it will output all the resources I have for, and this is where you choose your scope. So when you query Azure Resource Graph, depending on the tool you're using, the portal or Azure CLI, Azure PowerShell, or the REST API itself, you need to provide a list of subscription IDs. So this is the unique identifier for your subscriptions. And so let's, for this example, I'll just use my personal account and I have 2 subscriptions. So if I run the query and say, show me resources, you can see that I got 122 results.
Let
and
me
that
move
took...
us in the corner.
I can zoom.
There it is. So right now, both of us are side by side in the top right corner.
Okay.
So we'll have a better view on the result and
on the result and the queries. Well, because I will write a lot of code. So okay. So like you can see, 122 result, and that took under a third of a second. So, and I could have had a 2000 result, and the speed would have been similar, under 1 second, etc. So if I do, so this is just, let's say I specified the table at the very beginning. If I did the same with Azure Resources, I run the query, I will get the advisor information that is kept inside Azure Resource Graph. So I'll keep with resources. I'm on all my subscription. If you're asking yourself, I'm playing with management group. So management group is an abstraction of a way to group several subscriptions together for the sake of simplicity and ease of configuration and yeah, basically to do management at scale. The support for querying at the management group level is coming. It's currently in preview with an API version.
Nice.
It's coming.
Is it a public preview or it's a
it is a public. I'll give an example because we're too soon in the in this stuff, but I can go back and show you the construct query at the management group level using the REST API a little bit later if people want to see that. Okay, so first thing you want to do usually when you have a big group of data is you want to add some restriction. You want to limit the amount of information, or you're looking for something. So you need a where clause. So it's, if you're doing SQL, it's pretty much the same thing. So where, and usually one thing, just go back in there. I cannot get rid of that. Okay, so you can see that even when I run the query with resources, I have all these. Okay, I'll just run resources again. I have several information in there. So the ID of my resource, the name of it, the type. So if I was talking about resource provider earlier. So we can see that Microsoft.storage, this is the resource provider. And after that, it's the resource type itself. So the type storage accounts, which is a storage account.
So it's the provider, it's like a super type kind of thing.
Yeah.
Parent type.
Yeah, it's the parent responsible to managing those child resources types.
At least that's how I visualize it, because initially when I started in Azure, I was not sure for me what provider was. In my mind, it was something else. So first I was like, oh, it's the type, but then like you get subtype, it get confusing. So it's kind of a parent type or group of types.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. The way I think of providers is I really like to think about them as, like I was referring, as a driver for your computer. So one is responsible for your printer, another one might be responsible for your keyboard, your mouse. So it's just they know how to talk and deal with the hardware, and so that's okay. So we have, So we have the type, tenant ID. The tenant is always the Azure Active Directory tenant. It's the ID of that tenant, basically. Mm-hmm. And usually you have one or several per organization, but yeah, so it's the ID of that tenant. The kind, location, resource groups, those are all information that are attached to that Azure resource, subscription ID, SKU, etc. The thing is, there's a lot in there. So I can click see details, and there's more and more we can see.
Good. Yeah, and you have even the JSON document and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So the biggest part usually it's the property bag, which is under properties. And the idea is they try to show you that in a table format. But if you want to expand, because let's say owners and everything, and maybe properties, it's a big bag, so you can always go and see details. And
right now everything, I'm assuming it will show more, so I don't want to stall your thunder, but everything right now we see a lot of properties because you just, your query was super simplistic. Am I correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you could filter what's returned.
Yeah, so one of the things I will do is just restrict the result. So, and when we have several statements, so the first one is the table, and as soon as I'm adding operator and I want to do more stuff in my query, I will use the pipe symbol.
Okay.
So resources, pipe, and then I can do a where. Let's say that the type I want to have, and this is where there's several operators. You could have equal. If you're dealing with types, I don't know why exactly, but sometimes they are returned not with all the same casing. So you need to do a case insensitive. You need to use a case insensitive operator. So the way to do it is by using the equal, and I think it's style. Style type. It's my French accent, sorry.
Oh, it was the same for me, so yeah.
So you have the choice of using single quote or double quotes, and after that you're typing what you're looking for. So let's say I'm after Microsoft.compute.virtual machines. If I do that, instead of 122 result, I will only have 3 because I have 3 in all my subscription. So those are all the virtual machines in those 2 subscriptions.
Pretty cool. I have a question in the chat from ArcChange Alandrian. ArcChange Adrian, sorry. He's asking, is it possible to trigger an Azure function that use Azure Graph to query unattached disk, for example, or search something like an Azure function could run a query?
Yes. Yeah, you could do that. The idea is in your code, whenever it's C# or PowerShell or whatever, there's module and there's DLLs and so
SDKs to help you.
there's SDKs to play with Azure Resource Graph. And if you're very, very in something that is not covered, which is not very it's not common with Azure today. There's SDKs for almost everything, but you can always revert to the REST API as a last resort if you want. It's the more complicated way maybe to implement that in functions. But like I said, if you're using C# or PowerShell, whatever, it's very feasible to go and query Azure Resource Graph to do so. Yeah.
And I'm assuming at that point, then the Azure function will need to have access. So you need to use identity and set up a user to get access to your...
Exactly. The recommended way will be to use a managed entity. So I don't know if we need to explain managed entity, but it's
it's very easy now. There's good documentation. I don't want to go too deep on that, in this sideways. But right now in the portal, when you are in Azure function, in the left menu, you have identity. You click there, you enable it, and from there you could go very easily.
Yep. So, but the short answer is yes. From almost everywhere, you can query Azure Resource Graph and do whatever you like after that. If you're looking for abandoned disk or things like that, you can. I won't say the hard thing, but the hard thing to do, but it's just get the idea of what you're looking for, translate that into a query, and this is where we're going to see a little bit more of how to perform query today. And this is the hardest part. After that, invoking the resource graph query is kind of easy.
Cool.
Okay, so there I have the virtual machines. Again, I have all those properties. Let's say I'm again going to the properties. I'm looking for maybe VMs that match this size. I can go also and check the OS disk. So there's a lot in there where I can say, and if you have this example, I could always go there and add another where clause and say, okay, give me all the VMs that are, let's say, deallocated. So you can say, and one of the things you can do also is go in there, let's say, I guess it's this one, skill set, command, this one. Okay, and I explored a little bit using the C details on in the result, but I could also use the left pane to go and explore what is available in this type. So let's say I wanted to go into the extended, instance view, power state, and I wanted the...
Okay, so that's the result.
The result is on the lower right, but there's a browser that you can use on the left.
But is it the filter version that tree, or it's the all the resources?
It's all the resources. It's just to help you build, let's say, queries and see what's available.
Okay, cool. I thought alt was filtered, and I was like, wow, this is crazy, but it makes sense.
It's not there yet. So.
But just like in the back, back in the day, and Visual, what was the name again of that app? The SQL Server Manager. I forgot.
Oh, the Management Studio.
What? And you had the tree view with all the tables, columns, and everything. So it's that view now. Like you have everything, and then you run your query, and you have your results.
Yeah, this is more to just help you create your query. It's not an explorer per se for what's in Azure right now. So it's not that. But okay, so I won't execute that, but the idea is you can add multiple where clause in there. You can use and or for multiple conditions. What I could use also is, let's say I'm using with virtual machines. One thing after the where, like I said, I can use the type. It's preferable to use and let me just do a new query language reference. So you see it was a Cousteau query language. So we were looking at a KQL.
Okay, so they kept Cousteau then.
Yeah.
It's in the doc. I'm safe.
It's in the doc.
I won't get any trouble.
Yes, okay, I think it's more in the I wanted to show the list of, I think I have that in the just show you that. So just as a short, there's a lot of operators for equality that you can use. So equal, not equal, and tilde I was using. That's it for.
I didn't know that operator. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, and this is just a short list of them. And if we go to the, just in there, you will have there. I cannot have all that by heart. It's.
Oh wow.
But the thing is you can do pretty much everything with the string operators. So the idea is just, it's in the documentation. We'll use just a few of them, but there's way more than what I'll be using today. So if I go back in there, the query I was doing is Microsoft Virtual Machines. One other thing I can do also is I can use an aggregate function. And one of the aggregate functions that people use usually is they want to do a count, they want to do, let's say, one of them is a summarize. So I can say, let's say, all the resource virtual machines, I want a count of this. Mm-hmm. And you can see I have now 3. Instead of the results themselves, the aggregate function just gives me the result of the calculation or what I'm trying to do. So one of the things I could say, I want to have a count. Let me just, and this is where summarize. Count is just the count of the row that the query return. If I want to have more control over the aggregation that takes place, I will do summarize, let's say count by, and I can provoke the error for you to see that. So if I do properties storage profiles, and this is where we don't have IntelliSense on the command line, and that would be super useful. Azure Resource Graph team, if you're looking at this. .os type. So if I try to execute this, since we're entering the property bag, those are called dynamic properties. So they doesn't know which type they are, etc. So I won't be able to use that directly for my summary. So if I execute that, it will say I cannot use a dynamic type. So I need to convert that as a string or as an integer. In this case, it's a string, so I can do a toString. And now I will have a count for my virtual machines per OS type. And I have...
and I see chart. Does it mean you could have charts?
Yes.
Did I?
Okay, I have a typo here. That's why it doesn't work. I have another typo somewhere. So let's go with properties, storage profile, OS disk, and OS type. So I can just grab this. I think it was the same thing I did, but okay. I don't know. I probably, because this is case sensitive, probably I have maybe a wrong case for storage profile or something. So you can see I don't have Linux virtual machine there. But
shame on you.
Okay, but let me run that at my company while my boss is not knowing that. You can see we have 31 Windows and 42 Linux. Okay, I need to hide that because he won't be happy. So, but the idea is now I have more control over what I want to have a count on, and there's a lot of aggregation function out there that I can use. But this is one example. Okay, so summarize, as you can see, I don't have all the result. I just have the aggregation of and the count and what you want to do with them. If I go back to all my virtual machines,
summarize is is like the group by in SQL.
Yeah, it kind of, yeah. And
I answer a question in the chat, but just to double check with you. So Joel was asking, can I send a query via API? So because you said it earlier, we can query with the REST and everything. So the answer is yes.
Yes, if I do, let's say, and this is where, okay, let's say I like to live in danger. So what you can do, I'll use PowerShell, but if I want to take the same example, I can do, you need to install Azure Resource Graph for Azure CLI or PowerShell. It's not shipped out of the box. So you need to install the module. Let's say you do install module easy.resources.
I think in the link, the first link you gave me, it's included, right?
It's included in there. So, but the idea, you do the installation either in Azure CLI using the, you add an extension, or you add the module for PowerShell. And after that, you do a search easy graph query. And I'll just use, let's say, the same thing here. Okay, without, and you can see I have all those results. They are all PowerShell objects. Okay, I'll do just something. Okay, this is where type, again, the tilde for the case, that compute virtual machines, and just for the sake of simplicity, I'll just limit to one result with the pipe limit 1. If I do that, I'll have one result in PowerShell, and I could also, let's say, use the convert to JSON thing with a depth of 5, and then I have my result from Azure Resource Graph in a JSON format I could use in my programming language or everything. So yeah, you could easily do that from the command line in the REST API itself. It's just a matter of knowing the query you want to execute, and you can bring that to the platform and the tool of your choice.
I put the link in the description, but it's Azure Graph documentation, the starting point. If you go in the Get Started in the middle of the page sections, let's say first query, and then you pick whatever you're comfortable. If you want a PowerShell, CLI, .NET, whatever, they will mention that one of the first thing they will mention if you need to install an SDK or add the module to your query prompt, whatever.
What we can do also is, okay, now I have limited my my criteria. I have added criteria to limit my result set. What I can do also is, if I want to add a column, let's say to the result, what I could do is, I was playing the example just before. I was playing with this, but let's say I want to use that and put a where condition. I need to remember and copy over and over again that long property So what I can do is I can extend. So extend will add a column to the result set with the information and calculation I'm doing there. So I can do extend OS, that will be the name of the column, equal, and I refer to property storage profile with this OS type. Then what I could do is, let's say, summarize count by toString OS. If I execute that, it will be the exact same result, but I could also do after that where OS equal, or again, equal Linux. In my case, I won't have any because I don't have any Linux virtual machine, but again, if I do that in my corporate environment, I will have 42. I need to switch back.
The corporate
environments.
And
so
let's another environment, a mysterious
another. Yeah, let's call it the other environment.
The other environment.
Yeah.
You
So
know, like
okay,
in the Upside Down. What's the TV show?
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things. The Upside Down. The other environment.
So the idea.
People in the chat are asking to see if we can have chart and bypass. I'm assuming you will show us that later on, right?
Yeah, but I'll get that. I'll get to.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. We're waiting for that. We'll be waiting.
Okay, I can. But the idea is you can extend, add more. If I do this, you'll see that at the end, my added column is there. So I can use it for whatever reason, using a where, summarize, or whatever. So I'm just adding more and more. So extend. This one is static versus this. So if I run that again, you can see that now every row will have that column added with this in there. So.
Okay, yeah. So you could add stuff if you want.
You could add more because you could perform, let's say, a calculation based on whatever suits your need. What you could also do using extend is if I'm reusing the name of an existing column, let's say name, which is there, this here, and if I just run that, now the name column is overridden with this, and it's now called obfuscated. So you have a lot of control over the column that you see there. What you can do also is you can perform join, because let's say you have resources, but on the resource table, you don't have the name of the subscription. You only have the subscription ID. So if you're looking for containers, which are subscription and resource groups, you need to query a separate table.
Okay.
So let's say if you're after tags at the resource group level or subscription level, you could also do that. What I could do is resource containers where type again equal Microsoft dot resources slash that would give me okay, they added subscription. Resource containers. Okay, so those are all my resource groups for all my subscriptions. Mm-hmm. Let's say I want to have I'm looking for tags, so where tags environment, I'm looking for all the resource groups that don't have the environment type. So is empty. If I query that, you can see I have one resource group that doesn't have. If I take a look at tags, there's no tags at all for this. And the idea with resource containers is that you can join those tables together to give you more information. Like I was saying, if you want the name of your subscription, you don't want the subscription ID, you will need to perform a link, put a link. I think I have that just on the side, just not to type it. But the idea is it's going to be subscription.
If you have it on the side, Stephane, you can copy paste it and just explain what it is to save time.
Yeah.
Or avoid typos or whatever.
Yeah, I have it somewhere. Join resource containers. Okay. Go. So I'll explain what it is at the same time. So I'm starting from resources. I'm looking only for one VM, which name is Steam VM, and I join on resource containers where the type is subscription, and I'm projecting, and this is something we will see, projecting the subscription name, subscription ID, and the link, the join is on the subscription ID field, and I'll just remove that for the moment. If I run this,
like you're running a sub query, and that will return the subscription name as the name.
Exactly. Okay. Because usually you only have the subscription ID information, and now using this technique, you can join on multiple tables. This example is for the resource containers, but you could do the same for other tables, and join and get more information and restrict those.
Yeah, pretty cool.
And that one of the example for the subscription name, that's one thing. But let's say you're looking for, I think I have it there also. There's one that is way more complicated. I'll just get to it. Quick start query and this.
I think we're pretty good in time, Steph, but just to let you know, we have about 20 minutes to go.
Yeah. So let's say I want to have the VM with, and this is, I think you have it in the links also, but this is a repository I made for myself where it's resource graph queries I find useful, or I had to use in the past, and I'd put them in a GitHub repo.
Is so it people can quick start queries?
Azure Quick Start Resource Graph. Yeah.
Okay. I'll share that.
It's under the SureGate account. So if I take that, you see there's join, what I can do is explain you what this one is doing, and after that we can go to the chart, because there's a lot of keywords in there. So we start with all the resources, which are virtual machines. We will extend all the NICs, so the network interface. Mm-hmm. MV-expand will take, let's say if you have an array of items, it will explode a row for each of those sub-array items. So let's say I have a VM with 2 NICs. The result will be 2 line in my result for each NIC and the VM itself. So it explodes the child array item, the number of child array item as 1 line each. And after that, we just go deeper and deeper with that NIC information. If it's the primary one, if it's empty, etc. We do a join, and because what we have as information, let's see, for the network interface, it's only the ID. in the virtual machines. So having the ID, now we can perform a join to go and get as a subquery the network interfaces that match that ID. So just to go get the public IP, you can see that, and this is only to get the public IP of virtual machines.
No,
so
I'm just trying, like, if you're trying to do that kind of gymnastic in like the old-fashioned way, like you need to make so many variables and bunch of stuff, and then like the time that it will take to get all that information and everything.
Yeah, and it's very it's an acrobatic to do that. Let's say in a query language, in PowerShell, Azure CLI.
Oh yeah, that's
I'm not saying it's easy to read. I think I took the worst example just to make you cry a little bit. But the idea is just you can be very simple, and you can go as complicated as you want.
Yeah.
One other example I'll show you, and because I'm showing you just things like adding a column, removing a column. Let's say you want to have a real life example of this. What we can do is, I was talking about expiring certificates. So I can just, let's see, I'll remove that. I can. So the idea is I'm looking for web certificates that are under app service.
Mm-hmm.
So app service is under Microsoft.web, and I'm looking for certificates where the expiration date will expire within the next 90 days. So I can have a query. I don't have any result because I'm a good citizen and I renew my certificate recently. So if I do 270 days, you can see that for my website, it will expire on the 2021. So using those kind of queries, you're able to dig and get and be proactive and say, I want to have result. And the Azure function was a good example of this. Or you can build yourself a dashboard. And let's say I want to pin that to my dashboard. Say I have a dashboard here. And now on my custom dashboard, when I land in the Azure portal, I can see that the result I could have formatted that a little bit more, better than this, but you can group query from Azure Resource Graph to your... So people were asking for charts.
Yes, that was me and Yikant were looking for charts and graph.
And you'll be delighted, my friends. So
big word over
so
there.
Yeah, there's a link, because for real I can go on and on with how the query, the syntax, the keywords, but honestly it's for you to go a little bit and explore. The idea is be cautious about when there's a case sensitivity. Tend to go with the insensitive part. It's not that slowest compared to the case sensitive research, but it will prevent you some bad surprises. And yeah, use extend. And I didn't talk about project. I'll just finish with that. You were saying a little bit earlier, how can I don't want all those properties. Let's say I'm only interested in subscription ID, resource group, name, location, etc. Let's say those 5 project will give you that. So extend will add a column to my result set, and project will limit the amount of column that will get into the result. So if I execute, oops.
And I'm assuming you can...
Okay, you can see that I only have those 5 in my result now, instead of the whole thing.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you could play with those return, like, you could say the name is, and then aggregate or concatenate whatever value in that column. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but using extend or project, I could do what I was able to do with extend. I could do, let's say, test equal and expiration date. That should work. No, it didn't. Okay, so, but the idea, yes, you could add those together and perform your calculation and do that very easily. So project extend, project away would be, let's say I just want to keep the name of the resource, the location and expiration date. So let's say I want to get everything except those three. Project away will enable me to do that.
Oh,
so
that's
everything's
nice.
So it's like everything except those three. So this is nice to know also.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Instead of typing all those three.
Oh yeah, like
everything.
you wanna keep this property hidden from the result, and like you just type that thing and return everything else. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. So, as for the charts, so let's say I want to have all the OS types. Okay, I'll go to the other environment.
I need a sound effect.
Let's say I have, okay, those Linux and Windows virtual machine. If I go to chart, I can select the chart.
Maybe not a map. Yeah.
No, not a map yet. So you can see that I have two choices basically, bar and donut. So the more you have, and same thing, you can pin those to your custom dashboard in Azure. If I return to my genuine environment, there's in the links that you have, there's Azure Governance and Azure Resource Graph samples for custom dashboards.
Yeah.
And there's two samples. And you can have, this is called the inventory, Azure Resource Inventory. And this is free for you to use. What you need to go in there, you just go to the JSON definition of, this is a JSON definition for a dashboard, a custom dashboard in Azure. What I'll do is I'll use the raw version of it, and I'll use that file to create a custom dashboard. So I'll choose upload. You can see it's not the first time I've done that. And now it's plugged live with all my resources in my.
That's cool.
Yeah, so you can see that you have 122 resources. The top resources counts by type, and this is a compute inventory. The number of virtual machines, Windows, Linux would have appeared there also. There's too much information, and there's too much information for me to run that on my other environment. But my boss won't be very happy if I do that. But you get the idea.
Yeah, exactly.
The number of storage
Joel is
accounts.
saying mini Power BI is so much like building all that dashboard is a lot of work, but then like it's easy to install and you don't need to go on Power BI. You have it right in the Azure portal.
Yeah.
And then you have all the permission and stuff on top of it if you want to like share very private or sensitive information. So like it's pretty cool. Wow.
Yeah. And what you could do is you can see that the sum of all disk size for all your virtual machines equal that amount of gigabytes, etc., etc. So there's a lot in there. And what you could do also is put the auto refresh on. So this is a snapshot as when it was executed, but it could be refreshed every, let's say, hour, every 2 hours, etc. You could do that
so
also.
Back in the day when everybody was going at the office, you could have like the big TV in the hobby saying, hey, Joel has 3 terabytes of data on Azure, like he's the winner right now, and like
Exactly. You could have a wall of fame of,
of fame, right?
Or shame, depending on what you
depending on
But the idea is, as soon as you have something pinned to the dashboard, you could always go back and change the query, let's say in there. So the query is there. You could decide, okay, I don't want 10 anymore, I want 5. And you could see the difference in there. Update pin part on the dashboard, and then you can see, boom, it's just updated.
Boom.
So it's really easy, and I would need to change the title, of course. But the idea is you could come up with pretty intense and interesting dashboard using
just
this.
Start from that file and then customize it for
Exactly.
this need. Remove some sections. So like if you just want to, quick start. Just take this and then you remove, change the part you like, you don't like, add custom stuff. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
I had another question. I know time is flying, so I want to make sure that all those questions are answered. I'm not sure, like, I will ask the question and then we'll discuss. So is it possible to figure out most utilized resources? Like it depends, I think, on what's utilized mean, right? Because like, is it storage? Is it VM? Is it like a service? Is it the containers?
And the short answer is no.
No, we can't.
No, because what you will use to determine if a resource is used or not. Okay, it depends. If you want to know the more that is used as by the count of instances that you have, this is what we have on screen right now. But if you're interested in, is my VM utilized or is it used? You get that information from the metrics of your resource, and that is not available. Metrics.
Okay, so I could not check.
Metrics for resources.
I cannot say give me the VMs where the CPU is higher than 80%.
Not at the moment. It's not there. People are, and when I was showing you the VM. We were able to see the provision state, if it was running or you could do that though. Do I have a sample for this? Where subscription? No, but I could go back. But the quick answer is no. Okay. It might come over time. You're able at the moment to detect if a VM is running or not, because they introduced that information recently, because people were asking for that through User Voice, the Azure User Voice website, where they can propose and vote for functionality in Azure in general. Yeah. And this was a top ask for the Azure Resource Graph team. So, but no, at the moment, you don't go as deep as the metrics of the resources.
And it will be very difficult also to access, because Azure Graph, like you said, doesn't know how all those things work. So it's, with the providers and everything. So it's only have some information. So it's how the resources is defined.
Yeah, and you make me think, one thing I didn't mention at the beginning is that Azure Resource Graph is updated when you modify a resource in Azure. Azure Resource Graph, I think the deadline they gave themselves is 1 minute for the information to be updated in Azure Resource Graph.
Wow!
But usually it's between 10 to 15 seconds. So usually when you modify a resource in Azure, the updated state in Azure Resource Graph, it's there around 15 seconds after.
Okay. So the SLA say 1 minute, but then
exactly
the experience right now, it could change depending on where you are with data center and everything, but it's like super fast.
Exactly.
So good.
But if you take the case of metrics, where that information change every tenth of seconds, every seconds, that I doubt we would see that very soon or in the current implementation, because that is too much data to probably to handle for the platform. And it will, if you take all the Azure customer, all the resources, and you want to bring metrics in there, it's going to be a nightmare, right? So I don't know if we will see that in the future, but it's not possible at the moment.
Let's go side by side. I want to make sure people can find you, Stephane. So I will share your blog. So if you have questions and you want to learn more about Azure Graph and Azure, you could always find Stephane on Twitter. His Twitter handle is S_Lapointe or Lapointe.
That's for a couple of MVP summits ago. Yeah.
And if you wanna, so you can always find him there. And I also share in the chat his MVP page where you see all the his GitHub and a little bit more bio and different information over there. I think it was super helpful, Stephane. Honestly, I learned so much, and already I knew a little bit of Azure Graph based on some blogs that you wrote a little while back. But oh, did your camera is frozen? Yep. Did I lost you? Oh, camera lost. Are you still there? We lost Stephane. I was not done. If I go in side by side, are you still there? Nope. At least he was smiling. Oh no, Steph. Well, you know, it won't be a real live event if we don't have a few good bugs and issues, right? Sorry about that. So Steph here, you know, at least his S, you know, matches initials. So feel free to reach him on Twitter. I know he like to share. He like he mentioned, helping people. So he will guide you. He has a nice blog called Code Highway. Fantastic. He's blogging over there, sharing a lot of information. Always also he's doing some recording. Yeah, and now I'm trying to remember from the top of my mind all the information. But yeah, I will share all the information. I have a bunch of links in about a week or two that stream will be compacted in a video available online. I will make sure that it's available. You will probably find it at blog.azure.com, allaroundazure.com, I mean. Yeah, so I will see you tomorrow. We have another show, and I forgot the topic. Tomorrow it's... Hey, there you are. I'm not sure we have the sound, though.
Now you do.
Yes, I have. Okay.
Sorry for that. I don't know.
It's live. It's live. So
live TV.
I was just saying, if you have any question, ping him on Twitter. He's always very happy to share. That's how he became an MVP, because he liked to help people. So send a question over there. And this video will be also available later on YouTube or at a blog. I will make sure so you can follow me also over there, and I will share the blog post, but the URL right now is not available yet. You know, building the car as we're doing the race. So it will be blog.allaroundazure.com. So thanks again, Steph, for spending time today with us.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
Thank you everybody in the chat for this wonderful day. And see you tomorrow, talking about Apache tomorrow, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.